Crime scene investigators investigate thousands of true crime mysteries every year. Although a number of these are solved, there remain unexplained mysteries that baffle even the most experienced members of law enforcement. These strange and unexplained mystery cases have harrowing implications for the people at the center of them, as well as their loved ones. And without some kind of conclusion, those involved may never be able to rest. Number 5. An unusual true crime plagued a small Mississippi town in 2021. For some unexplained reason, a pair of individuals were targeting a particular item to rob: Little Debbie's snack cakes. More than 6 months apart, these unidentified thieves made off with hundreds of dollars worth of the product in the form of the shelf-stable snack. The identity of the perpetrators remains an unsolved mystery to this day. On New Year's Day 2021, a man and a woman broke into a storage unit in Poplar Bluff, Mississippi, and loaded more than a dozen cases of the snacks into their vehicle, including 8 cases of bagged donuts, 3 cases of strawberry shortcakes, 2 cases of zebra cake rolls, 3 cases of Suzy Q's, 2 cases of unicorn cakes, and 2 cases of birthday cakes. Then the pair drove off. The entire incident was captured on security footage, and crime scene investigators were initially confident that the suspects would be apprehended. Yet there were no leads, and nearly 6 months later, the criminals struck again. On May 22nd, a pair of men robbed a different storage unit in the small town, making off with an undisclosed number of cases. A member of law enforcement reported that in both cases, the criminals seemed to know exactly where to go to target the storage units owned by a local supplier for the snack cakes. In each case, this seeming inside knowledge allowed the opportunistic robbers to maximize their Little Debbie haul. A local detective named Dan Mustaine told reporters that crime scene investigators were searching for a particular motive behind the unusual true crime mystery. He was unsure if there was a local black market, or if the pair were perhaps selling their loot to secondhand stores or even yard sales. The Poplar Bluff Police Department posted videos of their heist on their Facebook page in 2021. They're asking that if anyone has information regarding the theft, to please contact Patrolman Cleveland at acleveland@pbpolice.org or contact 573-785-5776 at extension 1338. Number 4. In the midnight hours of November 22nd, 1978, a gang of bank robbers using specialized equipment undertook the largest heist in Australian history and succeeded, making off with more than $1.7 million. This true crime mystery has never been solved. Even more than 40 years later, the funds were never recovered. This unexplained mystery is never far from the forefront of Australian law enforcement, or those with an interest in mysteries from the land down under. The bank at the center of this unsolved case was a small, rural branch of the Bank of New South Wales. Apparently, someone in the gang of thieves knew that this bank stored cash supplies from other banks in the area, thus making it a major score. The group was already a known criminal outlet, which had stolen more than $1 million from robberies in Melbourne and Sydney. Their work was identifiable by their use of 2 pieces of specialized equipment: an electromagnet, which held in place a diamond-tipped drill. It was because of this that the enterprise got their name, the Magnetic Drill Gang. According to law enforcement, the gang members had likely stolen a Chubb brand safe in Melbourne. All of their subsequent robberies involved this brand of safe. Furthermore, the operation relied on the exact correct placement of the magnet and drill above the lock's tumblers, meaning that the group had likely practiced. After drilling a small hole into the safe, the gang used a medical cystoscope to look through the hole and unlock the safe entirely. They cleaned out the money within before locking the vault from the inside and making a clean escape. When bank staff arrived at approximately 7 a.m. the following morning, it took them hours to smash a hole through the brick wall of the bank in order to access the vault. A bank official told law enforcement that the criminals got the lot, and the expression quickly became a sort of slogan for the unsolved heist, printed on t-shirts and shot glasses that sold across the country. To this day, the magnetic drill gang robbery of the Bank of New South Wales remains an unsolved true crime mystery. Although it's been more than 40 years, the case is still open, and New South Wales police ask anyone with information to contact Crime Stoppers at 1-800-333-000. Number 3. 30-year-old Stephen Moline Jr. was last seen on his way to a party. Stephen and 4 friends were headed to Bagby Hot Springs in the Mount Hood National Forest when they got lost. The car was low on fuel, and Stephen's friends wanted to turn around, but he said the party was just ahead, and he would continue on foot, but he was never seen again. Stephen's unsolved disappearance is strange enough on its face, but a closer examination into his life and the stories of the people he was with that night reveal a tragic picture of a young man who was struggling and the strange and unexplained events that led to his absence. Stephen was a recovering drug addict who was just barely clean on the evening of his June 30th, 2011 disappearance. During the course of his heroin addiction, he'd contracted HIV and hepatitis, both conditions which made him weak and unlikely to undertake any sort of wooded hike, especially in the dark. Stephen also suffered from epilepsy and relied on a life-saving seizure medication, which he was not known to carry with him. In addition, the 6'8" man suffered from an unspecified condition which caused his shoulder joints to pop out with some regularity, likely a connective tissue disorder correlated with his tall stature. All of this added up to paint a clear picture of a man who had no place in the deep woods after dark. In June of 2011, Stephen was staying at a federally funded low-income housing facility that also housed short-term residents. It was there he met with 2 of the 4 individuals he was traveling with that night, who were overnight guests at the hotel. Although he didn't know them well, Stephen asked them for a ride to Bagby Hot Springs to celebrate his 30th birthday, and they agreed. Stephen told them that he knew the area around the springs well and directed the driver, telling him when and where to turn. As the car drove deeper into the woods, gas ran low. Eventually, the driver pulled over and told Stephen that he couldn't go any further. The group agreed to go back, but Stephen hopped out of the car and began walking. They honked the horn and called for him to come back, but chose not to follow Stephen, a relative stranger, into the woods. Instead, they waited half an hour before driving to the nearest town and calling 911. The group in the car didn't know Stephen's last name or how to contact his family. They also didn't know that he had epilepsy. Because of this, and because Stephen had a backpack with him, it was assumed that he was not in any danger. Law enforcement did not conduct a search for more than 2 weeks, at which point they found no trace of the young man. Tragically, Stephen has not been seen since. His missing person case is still open, and anyone with information about this unsolved mystery can contact the local county sheriff's office at 503-785-5140. Number 2. Just before 1 a.m. on April 16, 2013, an unknown person or persons orchestrated a planned attack on an electric substation in an isolated area outside of San Jose, California. This strange and unexplained true crime destroyed 17 electric transformers, costing millions of dollars in damages, and creating the potential for a major blackout in Silicon Valley, an area home to some of the country's largest tech companies. The identity of the attackers has never been unmasked, and there are some that believe this attack was meant to illustrate the major vulnerabilities in the nation's massive energy grid. On April 16th, the attackers began their mission by disabling phone lines in the area, temporarily cutting cell, internet, and landline service, and ensuring that they could complete their mission with ease. At 1:31 a.m., the person or persons involved began shooting at the transformer bank from a distance of approximately 25 meters away. This continued for 19 minutes, resulting in more than 120 rounds of ammunition being spent. Although some shots missed their target, the criminals seemed to be aiming specifically at the transformer's cooling fins. This meant that the attack would not draw too much attention too quickly. Disabling the cooling fins meant that the affected transformers would slowly overheat and fail, instead of failing all at once. Crime scene investigators believed that this shows that the criminals involved had a pre-existing objective and knew exactly what to target in order to cause the most damage. All told, the sniper attack cost upwards of $15 million in damages and revealed crucial weaknesses in our nation's electricity infrastructure and the way that law enforcement responds to these types of attacks. It took 25 days to fully restore the substation to capacity. Nearly 10 years later, the identity of those responsible for the Metcalf Substation sniper attacks remains an unsolved mystery. Anyone with information is urged to contact the FBI's San Francisco Area Bureau at 415-553-7400. Tips can also be submitted online at tips.fbi.gov. Number 1. By most accounts, the DuPont de Ligonnès family lived a normal life in the suburbs of Nantes, France. The father, Xavier Dupont de Ligonnès, was descended from French aristocracy and is sometimes styled as a count. Although some sources say that this title last applied to his father, Xavier and his wife Agnes had 4 teenage children, although the eldest was not Xavier's biological son. The marriage was privately rocky, but by most accounts, the couple seemed publicly happy and normal. Xavier did not have a steady career, and instead relied primarily on money inherited from the Agnes family. By 2010, the money was running out. In a 2010 email to a secret mistress in Paris, Xavier said that he was ruined at rock bottom, with no money to support himself or his family. He borrowed 50,000 euros from her, but even that was apparently not enough to keep him afloat. When Xavier's father passed away in January of 2011, he left Xavier almost no money or belongings except for a .22 rifle, which Xavier quickly seemed to develop a passion for shooting. Shortly thereafter, the family seemed to be preparing for a big move. The lease on the family's home was terminated, and the mail was stopped. Neighbors saw Xavier loading a car as well. On April 11, 2011, the school where the 2 youngest children attended received a note saying the family was moving to Australia. The same day, the school where Agnes worked received a similar message. Neither school spoke directly to any member of the family, and both notes were sent by Xavier. No one had seen Agnes or any of the children since April 5th. In the days after these notes were sent, Xavier stayed at a series of hotels in southern France. He was last seen on hotel surveillance footage near the mountains. On Friday, April 15th, Xavier was seen crossing the parking lot away from his car, carrying a bag with a large object in it. Crime scene investigators have theorized that this object was the .22 rifle. Xavier's car was abandoned in the hotel parking lot and he was never seen again. On April 21st, the bodies of his wife and 4 children were discovered under the terrace at the family's home. They'd been shot by a .22 rifle sometime in the preceding weeks. Xavier remains the prime suspect, but he has mysteriously vanished without a trace. Xavier has been the subject of multiple manhunts in the southern French countryside and among the mountains where he was last seen. There have been a number of reported sightings of the fugitive, including in Italy and in Scotland, but none of these have been formally confirmed. His whereabouts and his role in the tragic deaths of his family remain, to this day, an unexplained mystery. Anyone with information about Xavier or the Dupont de Ligonnès family can submit a tip at unsolved.com/tips. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to hit that like button. Also, don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell to keep up to date with all of our future uploads. But my name is Ty Knotts, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.